Hello again and welcome back to our course on Excel 2013. In this section we're going to look at one of the brand new features of Excel which was introduced in Excel 2013, which is the Quick Analysis tool. Now in fact you may well have seen the Quick Analysis tool already on this course and maybe wondered what it was. I haven't pointed it out to you so far because for it to make some sense we needed to cover quite a lot of other material first. But if I select some of the cells on this worksheet, this is the worksheet we looked at earlier with the scores for a class on their quizzes, essays, midterm tests and so on. If I select some of the cells, say columns A to D, the entries in A to D, and then having made that selection, so I've got the selection rectangle around it, just release the mouse, this little icon down here in the bottom right, if I hover over that, this gives access to the Quick Analysis tool. And if you read the screen tip, use the Quick Analysis tool to quickly and easily analyze your data with some of Excel's most useful tools such as charts, color coding and formulas. Now the idea of this is that if you want to do a quick analysis of one of the most popular types on a selection of data, and you don't necessarily want to find the right command on the right tab on the ribbon, or maybe go through some kind of preparatory steps, you can do a quick analysis just by selecting from what is in effect a special kind of mini toolbar. So if I click on this tool now, you can see this sort of mini toolbar. It's divided into a number of tabs, so we have a formatting tab, charts tab, totals tab, tables tab and sparklines, and within each of those there's a set of commands. So within formatting we have conditional formatting commands, for example. Within charts we can draw different types of chart. Totals, we can do different totals on the selected columns and so on. So let's have a look at a couple of examples of those. Let's start by looking at the Totals tab and let's choose the average. So click on average, look what happens. For each of the assessments that's included in those three columns B, C and D, we have an average score for the whole class. Now if I click on one of these average scores, such as B21, note that it's just put in a regular formula. There's nothing particularly unusual about that, and it has in fact included an average heading along the side here. But the fact that it's used an average formula means I can go in and format this and so on as necessary. So you're not only talking about the quick analysis of being a way of doing a quick analysis, but it can be a quick way of getting you started on something where you can add a lot more detail yourself later on. So for instance, having put that total in there, I could format those cells, maybe restrict the numbers to 2 decimal places, click on OK, and so on. So quick analysis, yes, but also getting you quickly started on a more detailed analysis as well. Let's take a look at one of the other options. Let's try charts. Now, of course, we have here 4 or 5 suitable charts, or charts that Excel considers to be suitable. We can also link through to more charts and use one of a different type. But with the Quick Analysis tool, if you hover over one of the proposed options for a chart, you actually get a preview of it as well. So for instance there, you've got a stacked column. There you've got a scatter. I don't really think the scatter works in this occasion. You have a clustered column, a stacked bar, a clustered bar and so on. So if I say went for stacked bar as an option, the chart's created, but then as before I can just proceed with it as normal as a regular chart. So I can resize it, the chart tools appear, so I have the additional design and format tabs, and I can go in and make all the same changes, put on a legend, change the title, change the size of the font, all of the formatting and design changes that I could regularly make with a chart I can do following on from the use of the Quick Analysis tool. Now let me just insert one column in here to demonstrate something else. Okay, now I'm going to make the same selection again, and I'm going to talk about one or two of the things you can do with the Quick Analysis tool on topics that we haven't covered in this course so far, but which you may find interesting or useful and which you may have heard about, and I'll just quickly cover one or two of those things now. With that same selection, one of the other categories on the Quick Analysis tool was sparklines. And if you take a situation like this where you've got a number of categories, in this case the categories are pupils at a school, then you can actually do a very quick chart in situ within the table of results in this case to show the progress of each of the students. Now these are called spark lines, and if I choose a line spark line, choosing that will draw it in the column that I opened up. So for each of these pupils you can show their progress over the course of the period of time, the term, semester, 82, 90, 87, going up, going down. Now with 3 quizzes that's maybe not the best representation, but of course you could choose the whole table and shows one of the students' progression over a period of time. Now something else you may have heard of in relation to Excel are pivot tables, and if I click on the Tables tab here, you have pivot table options. If I hover over those, you'll see that with each of those I get a different combination of information, row labels, sum of quiz 2 and so on. And with these combinations you can make what's called a pivot table and the associated pivot chart. And although pivot tables and pivot charts wouldn't particularly help with the sort of data we've got here, where you've got more complex data, pivot tables and pivot charts are a really great help. Just to give you a very specific example, let's suppose you make machine parts and you sell them around the world. When you look to analyze your sales and maybe work out what your marketing and selling strategy is for the future, you might look at things like which countries you sell in, what the price of the parts are, which particular markets in those countries you sell to. You may have a whole different array of ways of looking at the figures you've got on your sales around the world. Now pivot tables with pivot charts give you a great way of looking at a complex analysis where many factors are involved, possibly factors that interrelate, but sometimes factors which are independent as well. Now we haven't covered pivot tables and pivot charts on this course, but many people consider the use of pivot tables and pivot charts to be one of the strongest ways of taking advantage of Microsoft Excel. So there we are. Even within the types of data and analysis that we're used to, there are some additional options here. So for instance on totals there is the running total. Just click on running total, and as you can see with these columns it's giving a running total column by column as it builds up. So quick analysis tool is really something where there's plenty for you to experiment with, and sometimes it might even give you new ideas on how you can analyze data you've got in a worksheet. That's it on the quick analysis tool. I'll see you in the next section.